Senator Michael McDougall.
I welcome the Minister for State here today and acknowledge the presence of the Taoiseach earlier on in this debate. There are, as Senator Horkin has said, some serious matters in this bill which need to be addressed. And I'll come back to them in a moment, but I want to put in context that this bill is being put before this House at a time when the Defence Forces are crippled by at least a decade of neglect. And it does raise the question with me whether it was ever wise to do away with the separate Cabinet Minister for Defence, because the Defence Forces have been allowed to deteriorate in terms of numbers to a pitiable state, where there's less than 8,000 serving members, where ships, which we paid for, are tied up in quays for want of crews to run them, where the Defence Forces Reserve has collapsed in terms of numbers, and where morale is correspondingly low. And that has happened over the last 12 years. And it has happened, I'm afraid to say, in circumstances where it's all very well to establish a commission on the future of the Defence Forces, but what was blindingly obvious was that the capacity of the Defence Forces, even to send teams now, units now abroad to participate in international peacekeeping efforts, has been severely constrained by the fact that the numbers in the Defence Forces has collapsed so badly. 8,000 members of the Defence Forces is not sufficient by any manner of means for the proper defence of this country or for proper support for the government of the day in emergencies of various kinds. I don't want to make a song and dance about it, but I was a member of the FCA in the 1970s, indeed in the 1960s. This sounds like ancient history now. But at that stage, there were 20,000 people who were enlisted as volunteers in a local defence force, and who could and did come to the aid of the civil power and to the aid of the permanent defence forces to confront a national crisis. They don't exist anymore in the main, and the few volunteer reservists that are there labour under very difficult circumstances. Why is that the case? It is because, short-sightedly, nearly all of the bases of operation for the FCA were sold. And so now, if you want to be a volunteer in the FCA, in the reserve forces, you may have to travel 60 to 80 kilometres at least, even to attend a training session. Who is going to do that? And I mean, who do we expect is going to do that? And why do we expect that people are going to do that? It's a disgrace. It's a real disgrace. And I mean, I noticed that the Tory party in England is talking about bringing back national service. We eliminated volunteer support for our defence forces by that particular set of policies. And we now have a situation that across Ireland, young women and young men, the amount of people who could handle a weapon, take part in an effective military organisation in the case of an emergency, or support the permanent defence forces in any kind of operation of whatever kind, environmental, insurgency, you name it, that number of people who actually know how to handle a weapon, let alone take an order, has collapsed. In fact, somebody commented recently that maybe Gangland Dublin is better trained than others. And that's a sad situation. Now, I just make that point because we need, and the government chose the middle of the three alternative strategies for the defence forces to follow on foot of the Commission's menu of possible strategies. It isn't enough. And even it is not being implemented. We have a situation where Russian submarines are patrolling in our waters, examining our communications cables and the like, and there's anything can be done that the Irish Navy can do about this, even with half of its ships tied up in their bases. This is a sad situation. Our Air Force is fundamentally underprovided for. The decision to award the search and rescue function outside the Defence Forces was again misconceived. And, you know, we really have taken one decision after another, which has been to run down the Defence Forces to their present situation. And we're told now everything's going to change. I don't believe that everything's going to change. I don't believe it, because I don't believe that there is a will to change it. Now, could I just draw, I noted the Minister's, the Taoiseach's defence of having the Secretary-General of the Department an ex officio member of the Oversight, the external oversight body. Firstly, he's not external. Secondly, the functions of that body are entirely inconsistent with his membership. And thirdly, and this is the important point, the mere fact that the Taoiseach stands up here and says this was in a delivery of another independent view about who should or who should not be part of this body. I don't really care if that was their view. This is a mistake, a bad mistake, and it's compounding a mistake to refuse to change that. Can I just bring the House's attention to page 13 of the bill? The external oversight body shall be independent in the performance of its functions. And then you have the situation that the Secretary-General of the Department is, on the next page, he is, the Secretary-General of the Department is supposed to evolve strategy, participate in evolving strategy decisions which are supposed to be external and independently arrived at. Nobody in their right mind believes that that's correct. Nobody in their right mind considers that that's correct. When I introduced a Garda Inspectorate, I didn't say that the Secretary-General of Justice would sit there and decide what was and what was not adequate deployment of resources or whatever within Garda Síochána. And the fact that this department now cites and has the Taoiseach to come in here to say that somebody else recommended this and that he doesn't intend to back down on the issue is no excuse for a really fundamental mistake. I do take the view, too, that the wording of Section 2A to be inserted under Section 24 of the bill in relation to speaking on matters of government policy should be better and more clearly defined. And this House has the opportunity at committee stage to do that. And in case I'm being told that I'm being too negative, I just want to make one positive point. And that is that if you look at Section 11, it says that without prejudice to the Defence Amendment Act 1990 and to regulations made thereunder, a member of the Permanent Defence Forces shall not, while in uniform or otherwise, make himself or herself identifiable as a member of the Defence Forces, make, without prior authorisation from the member's commanding officer, a public statement or comment in relation to a political matter or a matter of government policy. I just stop there and say, a matter of government policy. His own wages, because he's not, it's nothing to do with the later business about without prejudice to the purpose of an organisation. There's no qualification there. A member of the Defence Forces, either in uniform or out of uniform, cannot comment on wages paid to government policy in relation to wages for the Defence Force. The second thing is he can't attend any protest march or other government or other gathering in relation to a matter of government policy. Nothing. So, for instance, closing down some types of schools or whatever, that's also prohibited. And this is where there is a flaw in the bill, and I'm going to be constructive. B, canvass on behalf of or collect contributions for any political organisation or society. Independents can have the whole of the army out there canvassing for them and collecting money for them because it's badly drafted. I would suggest, I don't expect that they'll be manning the polling booths for the National University of Ireland shadow elections for independence, but I can well imagine that this lacuna will allow independent members of candidates for Dáil Éireann to have Defence Force people actually supporting them. So that's badly drafted, and I will certainly support a government amendment to close that lacuna. Thank you.
Senator.